Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're doing a deep dive on something really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Ghana's brand new passport. We've got these excerpts from a news article about the launch, and, well, let me tell you.
Yeah.
This thing is causing quite a stir, and for good reason. It's packed with all these innovative features, like they designed it to be virtually forgery-proof.
Wow.
So I thought before we really get into it, maybe you could give our listeners a little context. Like,
sure.
What's the political scene like in Ghana right now? And then maybe touch on their history with corruption a bit.
Okay, so Ghana, it's in West Africa, right?
Yeah.
They've had this multi-party democracy since back in 92.
Oh, wow.
And they've actually had several peaceful transitions of power.
That's pretty impressive.
Which is a big deal in that region,
Yeah, absolutely.
But like a lot of developing countries, they've got this history of corruption.
Right.
And it's had a real impact on different sectors, like government services and things like that.
Makes sense. Okay, so back to this passport. I mean, it's not just about making a pretty document.
Right. No, not at all.
It seems like it's part of a bigger push by the Ghanaian government. I'm curious, what are they really hoping to achieve with this?
Well, you hit it right on the head. The new passport, it's more than just a travel document.
Okay.
It's symbolic, It shows their commitment to modernizing things, improving their standing globally, and really tackling corruption head on.
Oh, wow.
This is a nation that wants to be a leader in Africa on the world stage. It's a big statement.
That's fascinating. Okay, let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
Sure.
The article mentions it's a chip-embedded passport, or, an e-passport, as some people call it.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Can you break that down for us?
Of course.
What's the technology behind it, and why is it supposedly so much harder to forge?
Okay, so basically an e-passport, it's got this tiny little microchip embedded right in it. Oh. And that chip stores all your personal info, including biometric data like your fingerprints and a facial scan.
Huh.
It's like, think of it as a digital vault for your identity.
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
And it's super hard to forge because not only would you have to copy the actual document, which is tough enough, but you'd have to crack the chip's security too.
Right.
Which is a whole nother level of difficulty.
Yeah, it sounds pretty darn secure. The article even quotes the president saying it's virtually impervious to tampering. Is that, really true? Are there any limitations to this tech at all?
Well, no system is ever completely foolproof, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
But the layers of security in these e-passports, they make them really tough to forge.
Okay.
Like, the chip uses encryption and digital signatures that make tampering almost impossible.
Wow.
Plus, at border control, they have these special readers that verify the data on the chip against the person holding the passport. So it's really hard to slip through with a fake.
That's really impressive. It seems like Ghana is really serious about this whole security thing.
Absolutely.
But, anytime you're talking about personal data, especially biometric info, that raises questions about privacy.
You're absolutely right.
What kind of data are they actually collecting on these chips? And how do we know it won't be misused?
That's a great question.
Are there safeguards in place?
Data privacy is a big deal with any system that collects and stores personal information. And you're right to be asking about it.
Yeah.
In Ghana's e-passport, the chip usually stores the same info that's printed on the passport, your name, date of birth, passport number, things like that.
Okay, so the usual stuff.
And then the biometric data, fingerprints, facial scan.
Got it.
Now, as for the specifics of Ghana's data protection laws and what safeguards they have, that would take some more digging, some more investigation, which actually I'd encourage our listeners to do.
That's a great point. Always good to do your own research, too. So, okay, we've got this high-tech passport that's almost impossible to fake.
Yeah.
But it's not just about the technology itself, is it? The article mentions they've incorporated these Adinkra symbols into the design.
They're beautiful.
They really are. And I hear they have deeper meanings, too.
Oh, absolutely. They're more than just decoration.
Oh.
It's a way for Ghana to show the world what they're all about. That they represent core values, things that are really ingrained in Ghanaian culture.
I see. So they're like little visual representations of their values.
Exactly.
Can you give us a couple of examples?
Sure. One of them is Fawohodie, and it represents freedom and independence.
That's powerful.
It is, and it ties directly into Ghana's history. They were the first sub-Saharan African country to break free from colonial rule.
Wow, I didn't know that. When was that?
Back in 1957.
That's amazing. What about that other symbol you mentioned earlier?
Funtunfunefu Denkyemfunefu. It symbolizes democracy and cooperation.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
It's a cool one. Picture this. 2 crocodiles sharing a stomach, but they have separate heads.
Oh.
It means even if people have different views, they could still work together for the common good.
I love that. It's like unity and diversity.
Exactly.
It seems like they really put a lot of thought into these symbols. They're not just random. They reflect their history and what they hope for the future.
Exactly. It's pretty incredible how they wove this symbolism into such a practical document, isn't it?
It really is. Okay, so we've talked about the technology, the security, the symbolism, but there's another piece to this puzzle, isn't there?
Yeah.
The article mentioned something about Goro boys and the government's efforts to, well, I guess, stop them.
Right?
Who are these Goro boys, and how does this new passport system fit in?
Okay, so Goro boys, it's kind of a slang term.
Okay.
They're basically corrupt middlemen. They take advantage of inefficiencies in the system, for their own gain.
So they're exploiting the loopholes in the old system.
Exactly. Bribing officials to speed up passport applications, forging documents, even creating whole fake passports. That's their game.
Wow. So this new system is meant to cut them out completely.
That's the goal. It streamlines everything.
Makes sense.
Online applications, advanced printing that makes forgery way harder. The whole system's more transparent.
So it's not just a fancy new passport. It's about reforming the entire process.
Right on.
What other kinds of upgrades have they made to the system?
Well, they've got these state-of-the-art printing facilities now, like top-notch tech that makes counterfeiting almost impossible.
Wow.
And the online applications that reduces a lot of the face-to-face interaction.
And that helps to reduce the opportunities for bribery. Right.
Yeah, you got it. Less chance for those shady dealings.
These changes sound promising, but I imagine it's a huge undertaking to reform a system that's been a certain way for so long.
It's a big task, that's for sure.
What are some of the challenges they might run into, you think?
Well, one of the biggest things is making sure everyone involved is on board with this new way of doing things.
So getting buy-in from everyone, even the officials who were used to the old ways.
Exactly. They all got to be committed to upholding the integrity of the new system. Addressing any lingering potential for corruption within the system itself, that's key.
Absolutely. So it's not just about technology, it's about people too.
100%. It's a whole culture shift.
What about access? Will everyone be able to use this new system?
You're bringing up another really important point.
Some folks might not have reliable internet access, or they might not be comfortable with online systems.
Yeah, equitable access is crucial. The government's got to think about those who might struggle with the tech side of things.
Right.
Provide support, offer alternatives, make sure nobody gets left behind.
Because otherwise that could undermine the whole system.
Exactly. People need to trust that it's fair, that it works for everyone.
All right. And that goes back to building trust in the government itself, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If people feel like the system is rigged against them, or that it only benefits some, that's going to erode trust big time.
So it all comes full circle. It's about technology, security, but also about fairness and building that trust between the government and its people.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This new passport system, it's a microcosm of Ghana's ambitions and challenges, their place in the world. It's all tied in.
It really is. And it's fascinating how a little thing like a passport can reveal so much about a nation and where it's headed. We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've talked about the tech behind the e-passport, look at the symbolism in the design, and unpack how the government's fighting corruption through these systemic changes.
It's been quite a journey already.
It really has. But before we jump into the next part, I want to get your take on something.
Okay.
From your perspective, what's the most significant aspect of this whole new passport system?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's so much to consider.
I know, right?
But, if I had to choose just one thing, I think it's the impact it could have on building trust between the government and the people.
That's a great point.
By tackling corruption, by creating a system that's more transparent, more equitable.
Yeah.
It sends a powerful message. It shows they're committed to serving their citizens.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
It's not just about a shiny new passport, but about what it represents, that foundation of trust.
Exactly. And that's a great segue into our next part, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. After the break, we'll be back to discuss the potential implications of this new system and what it might mean for Ghana's future.
I can't wait. Welcome back, everyone. It's great to be diving deeper into this.
I'm excited to keep going. So right before the break, we were talking about how this new passport system could really boost trust between the government and the people.
Right.
But what other ripple effects do you see? Maybe on a, broader scale.
Well, this new system, it could really boost Ghana's image on the world stage,
Yeah.
When a country shows it's serious about modernizing, especially when it comes to security and fighting corruption, it becomes a lot more attractive to foreign investors, tourists, you name it.
Right.
And that can lead to economic growth, more international cooperation.
It makes sense. A reliable passport system, it kind of shows that the country's stable, trustworthy.
Exactly.
Like a signal to the world,
It says, hey, we're open for business. We're ready to play ball on a global level.
I like that.
And this brings us back to Ghana wanting to be a leader in Africa.
Right.
A strong passport system helps with trade and travel within the continent too.
Yeah.
Which helps everyone, regional integration, economic development.
So it's not just about Ghana itself.
No.
It's about their role in pushing progress for the whole region.
That's the idea. This could inspire other African nations to follow suit.
Oh, wow.
Adopt similar systems.
Yeah.
A more interconnected, more secure Africa. And that could totally change how the world sees the whole continent.
It's amazing to think about.
It is.
How something as simple as a new passport can have such a huge impact. It really shows how connected everything is globally.
It does.
But I got to ask, are there any downsides to all this?
Oh, that's a super important question. The benefits are clear, but we can't ignore the potential downsides.
Right.
Like we talked about before, one of the biggest worries is data privacy.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Anytime you've got a big database with all this sensitive biometric info, there's always the risk of it being misused, falling into the wrong hands. What can they do to prevent that?
Yeah. And what happens if those safeguards fail? What are the consequences then?
Well, Ghana does have data protection laws.
Okay.
But how those laws work with this new e-passport system, that needs more research.
Yeah.
Transparency is key.
Yeah.
People need to know how their data is being used, how it's being stored. And it's not just about protecting it from outsiders, it's about preventing misuse from within the government itself.
That's a good point.
Checks and balances are crucial. Oversight to make sure the data is only being used for what it's supposed to be used for.
Yeah.
Passport verification and nothing else. No surveillance, no tracking.
Right.
It's a tricky balance,
It is.
With all this new technology, how do we keep things secure without sacrificing freedom?
Yeah, it's a tough question.
It's something societies all over the world are wrestling with. We want to use technology to make things better, safer, more efficient.
Sure.
But we don't want to give up our privacy.
Of course not.
Or our freedoms in the process.
Right.
So what's the answer? How do we navigate all of this?
That's the million-dollar question.
There's no easy solution, that's for sure.
Right.
But I think it starts with open discussion,
Okay.
informed debate, and strong laws.
Yeah.
We need to be talking about how this technology is being used, what it means for our lives,
Right.
and holding our governments accountable, making sure these systems are used responsibly, ethically.
Because at the end of the day, it's not just about the tech itself, right?
Exactly.
It's about the values behind it.
It's about the choices we make as societies, about how we want to use these tools.
Right. So for our listener out there who might be thinking, well, this is interesting and all, but what does this have to do with me?
Yeah, good question.
They might never even visit Ghana.
That's fair. But I think there are a few reasons why this matters for everyone, even if you never set foot in Ghana. First, it shows how interconnected the world really is. What happens in one country affects others, even in small ways. Like Ghana's trying to modernize, fight corruption.
Yeah.
That could influence trade, travel, even security globally.
It's like that butterfly effect thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A small change here can make a difference somewhere else.
So we should all be paying attention.
Second, this is about technology and how it affects all of us. E-passports, digital IDs, facial recognition.
Right.
It's all changing how we live, how we work, how we interact with the world.
It's true.
We need to understand how these things work.
Yeah.
What the consequences are, no matter where we live.
It's about being informed citizens, right?
Yes. Especially in a world that's becoming more digital every day.
We need to understand the tools that are shaping our societies.
That's it. And lastly, this is a story about hope, I think.
Okay.
About the potential for change for the better.
Yeah.
It's about a nation trying to overcome obstacles, build a better future for its people and for the world,
I like that.
And in a world that can feel pretty negative sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
That's a story worth listening to.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that progress is possible. that people are out there trying to make things better.
That's what I hope people take away from this.
Before we move on, I want to circle back to something you said earlier.
Okay.
About Ghana trying to become a leader in Africa. What are some of the unique challenges they might face in doing that?
Well, one big one is bridging the digital divide.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
Not everyone has the same access to technology and the internet,
right,
and that can create barriers.
So participating in the new system.
Exactly. It's not enough to just bring in new tech.
Right.
You have to make sure everyone can benefit from it.
Absolutely. Make sure no one gets left behind.
Another challenge is keeping the system honest, over time.
Yeah, because corruption is a real problem.
It is, and it takes constant vigilance to make sure this new system stays clean.
So it's not a one-time fix.
No.
It's a constant process of improving, adapting.
That's right.